On the last part, we did create a simple form. Now we are going to set up this form to be a template-driven form. So we're going to set it up so you can type any data, and then when you click the submit button, this data can be handled on the feedback.component.ts file. For that, in the Visual Studio Code, the first thing I'll do is I'll just go to the Explorer, and then inside the app, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to name this folder, let's say, you can name this folder data, you can name this for classes. So I'll just name it data. Inside the data, I'll have a model. And then inside the model folder, I'm going to create the TypeScript class, which is going to represent the data that I want to get from the feedback form. For that, I'll just type in here feedback.ts. And then in here, I'm going to type export class, and then this is going to be the feedback class. And then inside the feedback class, I'm going to define a constructor where I'm going to set all the properties. Let us start with the first one, which is the email address. For that, I'll just type in here public and then email address. This is going to be of type string. Then we are going to have the phone number, so public phone number of type string. Then we're going to have the rate, so public rate, and this is going to be a number. Then we're going to also have the feedback title, so public feedback title. This is going to also be of type string, and then public feedback of type string. After the constructor, I'm going to add and close the curly brackets, and you can see that the error is gone. Now let us go to the feedback.ts file. So in here, I'll just go to the components and then the feedback folder, feedback.component.ts. I'm going to close the Explorer so I have more coding space. And then here, I'm just going to type that feedback of type feedback that I just created is equal to new feedback, and in here you can assign some default values. So in here, for example, you can leave the email address empty, you can leave the phone number empty, you can set a rate, let's say, of 2, you can leave the feedback title empty, and also the feedback value as empty. Now in here, if you want to set this value on the ngOnInit, what you need to do is that you need to implement in here onInit. And then in here for the onInit, you need to implement the interface of onInit, which is ngOnInit. So whenever the component is rendered, then you can set the value inside here. In my case, I'll just use it up here. So I'm just going to cut this and paste it up here, but I'll still keep the ngOnInit in case I want to set another value. So these are the first steps. Now we need to go and write some actual code in the HTML file. So for that, in the HTML, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to give a name to the form. To give a name to the form, what you need to do is that you need to use in here the hashtag, and then the form name is going to be, let's say, feedback form. And then here you can define that this is going to be an ng form. Other than the form, what you need to also define in here is the submit function. So in here, you use the ng submit. This is the form event. So basically, whenever you submit the form, you want to call the submit feedback method. And then on the TypeScript file, just need to go and create this method. And then here, you'll write some code. So in the component.html, now let us configure all the fields one after another. And let us start with the email address. In the input tag, what you need to do, you need to use the ngModel, so the two-way data binding, or if you want, you can use just the one-way data binding, but I'll use two-way data binding since I have set up the object in here. So if I want to have some default values that I want to load to the form, Then you need to have the two-way data binding. So you first set up the default value of the form, and then you can get values from the form. So that's why I've set up the two-way data binding. And this field is going to be bound in the feedback.email. So for that, just type in here, feedback.email address. Let us copy the ngModel and do the same here on the phone number. So here, just type phone number, or just, I think it's just phone. Let me check the feedback. It's phone number. Okay. Dot phone number. The third one is going to be rate your experience. For that, it's going to be feedback.rate. Then we're going to have the feedback.title, or actually the name is going to be feedback title. And the last one is just feedback. So in here, ngModel feedback.feedback. So this is all you need to do. And here on the rate, if you want, here on the rate, so on the rate experience, right now you can just drag the let's say the rate value, but you don't see the actual value. If you want, you can just type in here, I want to have a div where I want to show the value. And here on the div, for example, you can just type that you want to show the feedback.rate value. This form is not working as expected because, for example, the default value of the rate experience set to 2 is not being rendered. And if I change the value in here, you can see that the value is set to 2, but it's never updated. So now I'll just press F12 and I'll check if I have any errors in the console. And I have an error which says that if you want to use the ngModel, so if ngModel is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined as a standalone. So basically, if you want to use the ngModel, you need to also define the name property other than what we have, like the ID and the placeholder. You need to also define the name, and name of course needs to be unique. So let us go back to Visual Studio Code, and then here I'm going to start with the feedback down here. Let us set the value, so name, feedback. Let's also set the value for the feedback title. So this is going to be the feedback title. I'll just change the ID and the for as well. Now let us also set the value name for the rate, so rate. Then I'll change rate and rate in here. Now these are not required, I'm just changing them so I have like the same value basically for the for, ID and name. Let us go to the phone number. The phone number, the same way we're going to set the name, so phone number. And then on the email address, so name and then email address. Now let us just see what we have in here. Let's all change the div in here to your feedback. Let's change the default feedback value to be, let's say, a number higher than 2, so 8. And let's go back to the app. Now in here you can see that we don't have any errors on the console, so I'll just close it. And we also have the rate experience set to 8, and if I change the value, it goes to 7, down to 0, and the maximum value is 10. So this is how you can set up a simple template-driven form.